Okay, hello. So this is going to be my final prototype video. And so this is an alarm clock app, and the task that I'm developing for pertains to waking up from an alarm clock app and being conscious after waking up, because it's a very common phenomenon for people to dismiss their alarms while still being half asleep. And so through a process of need finding and brainstorming alternatives and making prototypes and doing evaluations on those prototypes, I've come to this prototype here, which combines some different prototypes that I created in the past and kind of iterates on top of those. Um, so I'll kind of walk through the functionality of the prototype and explain the things that I'm developing feedback for. So we'll start off by what it would look like to create an alarm. And so with this screen, the goal is to get feedback on whether the user can intuitively create an alarm, whether their mental models match up with the state of the system, and whether users can understand what the different buttons do. Um, and so we have two different methods here for verifying that a user has become awake after, sounding off their alarm. One is voice verification, and the other one is QR code. So you will have to scan a QR code of a product that you have somewhere far away from your bed. And finally, well, not finally, an important feature of this prototype is also the calendar briefing. And so you're able to toggle this on and off. But what calendar briefing is it's a feature that after you have disabled your alarm, you will be briefed on the days of your or the events of your day, the tasks in your calendar, and it'll be integrated with your calendar on your phone. And users found that they really appreciated being told the tasks of their day, and it made for an easy transition from being woken up into feeling prepared for the day. So I'm going to go ahead and save this alarm. Now you'll notice that it didn't actually show up in this menu here, and that's because the feedback that I'm trying to get is more related to the interface, the screens themselves, and not the actual creation of these events. And that's why I have these test alarm buttons up here. And so we're going to start with the left one up here, which is the voice verification method. And so be warned, when I press this button, there will be an alarm sound, though it should be relatively quiet. Let me turn the volume down. And so you can hear that the alarm is going off. This is what a user would get whenever they actually wake up at 7 a.m., hypothetically. And so we made sure to use the heuristics of simplicity, but also discoverability. And we kind of wanted to mix the two. So the user is able to discover the different functions of the screen, so they can see these buttons, these action buttons that are telling them to begin the voice verification so that they can turn off the alarm. However, we also leverage simplicity by making sure that only relevant information is displayed on the screen and that we're not overloading the users with information. Um, and so I'll go ahead and begin this voice verification process. And you can see here that it'll ask you to verbally state some things to verify that you are awake. And that's because um, we know that whenever a user is speaking, um, it requires cognitive function. It requires a certain amount of cognitive load that should only be available to them if they are conscious. So that's a reason why we're able to use this as a verification method. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat these. I'm going to tap the button first. I am awake and ready to start my day. And so you can see a box that says verification is successful. That is the system providing immediate feedback that allows the user to understand that they performed the right actions. It helps them bridge their gulf of evaluation so that they know that they did the right thing and that their goal was met and they took the right actions and they led to the right effects on the world. And so now we're brought to the calendar briefing section of the prototype. And you'll notice we have two different options here. One is an audio based and one is a text based. Um, The main functionality is the audio based. That was the original implementation. However, from need finding, we found that users sometimes live in shared bedrooms, and they have roommates that they don't want to hear the events of their calendar. And so we made sure to implement this prototype with value sensitive design, because privacy is a concern to our users, and we want to ensure that we offer alternative solutions, offer flexible solutions. Um, and so that's why we have these two different methods for being debriefed on the calendar. I'll go ahead and show the functionality.
Team meeting at 9
Turn
a.m.
the
for 1
volume up.
hour in conference room A. Client presentation at 11:30 a.m.
I'll
for
pause
40.
that now, and so you can hear that there's an audio based calendar briefing, but we also have everything laid out nicely here, text based. So I'll go ahead and dismiss this, and we'll hop straight into the alternative method, which is the QR code alarm. And so I'm going to hit this button up here. Again, the alarm is going to sound. And so I'm going to turn the volume down, actually, so that I can explain. We are incorporating flexibility and tolerance into this design as well, because the main function here was specified as being the QR code, which is why the blue action button shows scan QR code. However, it's not always the case that the user can get up and perform the QR code scanning. So we have some fallback mechanisms and some tolerance within our system so that users can use alternative methods of verification. And that's why there's a use voice instead button here. But we'll go ahead and go with the QR code to show the implementation. And so the user will have a QR code that they're going to scan here. And so again, we get that feedback that the verification was successful, and it brings us to the calendar briefing page once again. So no matter what, the user is going to get briefed on their day, which aligns with the evaluations that we got from our initial prototyping stage, where users did value being briefed on their day. And so this is kind of the bulk of the implementation of our prototype, but we've implemented a lot of different principles here. Another one that I wanted to kind of talk about is the idea of consistency. And so with this implementation, we're being consistent with different designs of alarm clock apps, like the layout of people's alarms. This is very common across different alarm clock apps, and that serves as an analogy for users to kind of lessen the learning curve for our app. It makes their mental models a little bit more clear from the get-go on how things are going to work. And so we've used all kinds of different heuristics and principles here, and a lot of intention has been put into this prototype. And we created this prototype for specific feedback. And yeah, this is my final prototype for my project. Thank you so much.